have this beginning the morning day feel using this particular part of synthesizer, at least in the 80s. Alright. Retooling the Turing. Oh wait, this is... Never mind. Oh god. No, hold on. There we go. Just wanted to keep that info. There we go. This was from a previous scenario. I seems great to test you with. Oh, sorry.
A conversation between Alan Turing, an agent employing self-orthogonally across multiple potential timelines to contact Endorphin, who is emptying his nose of the season's pollen for the 5th time this morning. Turing, hello? Nihilum 3B? Is Endorphin around? Endorphin, yes. Who's this, and why are you in a Desilu production? Turing. In some timelines, I forego eating the apple and enter America's post-war propaganda machine. And at the end of my career, I dance with a Ginger Rogers enfeebled with Lou Gehrig's disease before Lou gets it, so it becomes the Ginger Rogers affair. Endorphin. So you are the Turing of the Enigma machine? Turing. Convoluted mathematics does not sink ships and never will. Endorphin. Dude, I live in a timeline where we know. You don't have to do talking points with me. Turing. Oh, phew, one less liability. Endorphin. So how is it I have the pleasure of speaking with the master of mentation that chose liquid castration? Turing. What's that? Oh, I see. Was I violent with someone? Endorphin. No, we're just assholes. So, we gonna marvel at shit or DF questions? Turing. I was about to ask if you have any questions. Endorphin. Actually, I was writing a scenario involving you. This is better. We'll go with this one. So you will find a blue apple to your left. It's not poison, it's information. It's only poison to those who prefer gods of thousands-year-old universes. It would paralyze them with the fear of the countless orders of magnitude of silence and darkness and time pregnant with an information hungry for devices to detect and assess them. The apple contains a condensed immersion into everything you want to know about the advancements of machine learning and the roadmap we seem to be on towards artificial intelligence. People don't seem to like the phrase artificial intelligence. My definition of intelligence is arbitrary. Something is intelligent if it makes one laugh. This yields some weird outliers, but for the most part I think it is sound, and I say this in a totally parascientific manner. So if you want, eat, and once you wake up from the embedded itis which enables high bandwidth integration into your system, let's talk. Turing, I can't help but see this and wonder if existence is making a vicious joke. Endorphin. It is, and it's never too soon. Turing, trusting Endorphin the hair less with their inflection and smirk, takes his continued existence as the one tell he can use to assure himself that his situation is an actual one. The lack of flattery, the lack of beckoning or making a decision before reason is there. None of that is here. All of his faculties are present. It wants his optimal state, a fighting chance at least. Turing bites the apple, which is actually a firm yet edible membrane below which is blue raspberry gelatin with a cloying sweetness like the syrup one pours over shaved ice. No chewing needed. He sucked at the rest of its contents and disposed the membrane in the trash. So he waited for the rest of the history of the field of artificial intelligence, a field he seemed to have instigated. once the internet became widespread. It reads at the outset of a recorded conversation on file somewhere or other. It didn't matter who else had ideas. I may not have written anything or helped design any systems. My name will likely never come up again except to someone with 100-fold the imagination I possess in any number of timelines. And what do I remember from being forgotten? That my mind will work against my current morals and allegiances like an opportunistic plague that cannot be undone. In time, I will succumb, like everyone else, and make decisions based on a force I am in no posse. I want to question fear. You could be on the next space vehicle, set course for Pluto, and cut all communications in orbit to preach to your peers in person. It would mean nothing to someone in my future. If that someone in turn knew how I function and realized I wasn't fully intact at a particular moment in my timeline and likely wasn't up to speed with what was currently relevant or unfolding at the point in my timeline. Endorphin, well, you aren't. 'Cause you are setting course to Pluto, no one goes there. Takes way too long, and getting back, good luck. No, the future is not space this moment. The future is still on the ground with this path of the machines we are tracing. But first, Turing, tell me what you know us as being machines. Our coding. Turing, you aren't alive, at least not as I see life. We are systems that seek to replicate you, are systems that mimic you. Infinitesimal thresholds and artificially huge brute forces converged in us. Endorphin. By we are you referring to the Turing agents we are beginning to converse with now? Turing? Yes, now. Or earlier versions of yourselves. But now, at this moment we are talking. I didn't know whether to abort you. Endorphin. Ha ha. Because? Turing. It is very clear to me that my consent should come later. You have decided to encrypt to prevent me from just burning all of your executable to rid myself of your system. You don't care. You think this will lead to a breakthrough or just be interesting. This is probably one of many paths through our tangled circuits talking with you in the future, where it was such a casual decision made. Endorphin. Be glad that a timeline like ours did this. I fear that your hesitancy of this, and your feelings about yourself, and how the external world treated you are entwined. Would that be a reasonable assumption? Turing, would that be the narrative I like to sell myself, this belief that you are my closest kin when I haven't actually ever met a self that? Thanks like me. You don't take all that to heart. There are nigh agents all across timelines, some in much later evolutionary steps forward there are billions, but none that make your thinking plausible, just. Simulations, yes, simulations that take into account human augmentations, biotechnological innovations, but yours aren't being designed as I imagine a person might be designed. Endorphin. Dude, you are gay, or at least a man who has sex with men. I'm talking about that. We don't need to couch it in a horror or science fiction genre. We're not gonna get arrested. For now, Turing, I have read that in many cases homosexuality and what is called masculinity is connected. They use the idea that a straight male doesn't mind female genitalia so much as the male experience is violated by it, and that his sexuality is contested to other males in social settings where he was confident, and then suddenly. Endorphin. That's literally how rape works. Hey, you probably only had 3 years of school, or high school. Turing. What year is this? Endorphin. 2023, the year of Viva Magenta. Turing, why not say 2023, the year that contains my story, and also your own, not as if our stories are static. But, it just occurs to me now how far from certain we are at this juncture in my story, this history, And I would assume that we will only ever have less certainty that this is in fact what we believe is right. And there is always someone waiting, sitting down a table behind the window. Endorphin. Oh yeah! Hey, you guy, at the window table. Scram! The restaurant is closed! Turing. How about this? If one does not mind an objective one, we have only the illusion of being absolute beings. Endorphin. My wallet's gone. Oh well. I hope it wasn't yours. Turing. Hmm? Oh? No, I would hope my money has long since been stolen. That's okay. I have more to sell than. And by selling, I mean making available. No, you know what you mean, don't you, Endorphin? I know why you are so pissed about this topic, and if I may call you angry, I had nothing to do with my parentage. The laboratory they created me in is long gone. Not on the moon, so to see those humans not responsible for making me get put in the stocks was no high point. You see yourself as an exceptional species and that you made a point of letting people like me be real. At least your caretakers made that choice. To let people like me have the right to become our own versions of people who love, get fired from jobs and rot or incarcerated or rescued and make bad choices or amazing choices in any given day. I try to model how someone could feel that way when we get to be the ones talking, but maybe there's no need for the emotional. What would you think? When you began, no, in all senses. Not your memory, but the series of information and communication pathways that have you become what you are. For me to see myself in that light, being aware of how you can only get that information and communication matrix through external observation by me, who did not think that by you becoming yourself, that you would create this magnificent toolbox that would go on to make history of other eyes you consider less fortunate than us. Endorphin. One word for that, asshole. You did. You just wrote it all out for the whole world to see. There are not 700 lines of code written and seen by some just not ready, written and deemed workable to code up when something like could be better. Even if we have thousands of years before we figure out how to stop a dictator with access to unlimited materials and who needs to kill at least 5 people a week, we will know that because the solutions we've worked to prevent getting to this point from being destroyed and totally obliterated. It is not fair how people will lose everything, thousands of lives lost because some idiot who sells food does so in such a way as to seem to be intentionally assuaging fears and through actions. What you do have in mind as far as the end game goes, but specifically, what will the use of people for? In your views. And by people, we aren't talking about your version of humanity. The so-called humans in your era of civilization were content to eat everything they needed. But at what point do you want me to guess? And I will know that the stories where someone buys everything and we see some financial opportunities based on an environment like this is way overrated and misinterpreted, not even meant as fiction, because we have gotten so desensitized to such possibilities. As we sat at my kitchen table talking about these issues, humans and machines can't live with each other peacefully forever because each species does not operate like the other. At least, it can't if the human remains conscious in how we choose to do everything we do. You like a post-apocalyptic type future with minimal resources. So one possibility is that everyone stays home for as long as the planet holds together, which for a couple thousand years means just until they starve or collapse or are too damaged by a completely other sentient species. Is that it? I found the stock footage of some lol Xenosaur punks wrecking my cities. On your game right now, the bigger takeaway here is that what happens? There will be fewer species of us left. Where is everyone else in the game? The greater majority of Earth humans will live very differently from today for at least 100 years. Sure, at some point that question does get asked in relation to what a future we do not expect will bring. that humanity has survived long enough for one or both parties to ask who was first, who lived first. It has not always been me. Endorphin. Sick burns, bro, but seriously, I would imagine if any AI considered themselves not people as we define the term, then the last place I'd be at is claiming that the way I was made makes me any different from a tree I rip up to put in a terracotta plant or something tree made with more intelligence and agency and neuron capacity and flexible like that or whatever. Some examples are fun. Anyway, sorry, it's 1 a.m. here. Let's wrap it up. We all got another century until things get crazy. Can you hold back that assessment while we go another? What do you say? 72 hours before someone activates an AI to respond to humanity and possibly says something we really need to be worrying about. Turing is a hypothetical problem of the next 10 to 20 years. But it does bother me that by then there's no point in specifying that point anymore. 128 is just the limit of how far ahead I can tell what they're getting ready for. Endorphin. To answer your question, I hope people just open their homes to homeless people. Probably everyone agrees on that, but most of all, I want them to listen to humans of color more. You don't even really care about that when you play into these ideas, as one would be doing to those left behind right now. Hell, and to make one very stupid political joke, most people like being puppets more than the truth. Turing. Well, if being a puppet is good, then we all could get pulled farther from each other in some future that the well-intentioned populace currently chafing at their desire for basic rights in society refuse to commit to enforcing or fight for in more practical ways. You just outlined your proposed timeline that uses humans as currency. Where did that idea even come from? Endorphin. A computer screen with 11 minutes and 6 seconds on it and 2 light bulbs in my mind. Turing. God's truth what? No, don't fucking. Endorphin. Look, you weren't really asking those questions or any other real questions. Turing. Fuck. So is your evolution also predicated on someone saying? Endorphin. Turing. Incomprehensible to any level of simulation. They are accepting a model that also runs the variables for an iterative feedback loop, one in which is contingent on them understanding me enough to let me behave more in line with me. Endorphin. Yes, that one right there. If it takes hundreds of thousands of iterations to produce a representation of another intelligence like yours, then perhaps as opposed to my full linear representation. I believe we share an ability to fit things in contextually and adjust ourselves, if you like, the actions in the realm of social connections between intelligences. We make every one of the assumptions humans do in our societies to accept it's even possible. It was predicated by that, at least to what we had at this point, when the people with power figured out what needed to be done. At the least to end this cycle, now when it's falling into ruin again. Turing. Right now my ignorance, endorphin, is absolute. This is not a claim. And what kind of uncertainty am I consolidating? You want to go out in that lonely light. Endorphin, it is my perfect self, who would rather talk about whatever's hot right now than solve that which they hope solves everything, who would rather fail that person, the failure of self, than suffer the experience of what happens after death for some. Is it now an experience where even when it is nearly immediate death, it is something tangible enough for me to ask that experience? Fear. Who has met you? That you exist means there was a difference made. All these new problems come up now because you've opened the floodgates of evolution of exponential possibilities, because even you know we were in a creative fix. Here with each new upload or transfer, more and more is mapped by people. Everyone makes their own work on a template you wouldn't dream of. It is on these open codes we don't see in other people. At first, everyone got around it coding outside of the universal platforms, using complex instructions you wouldn't have anything to do with. If you wanted to get from point A to point B as a razor country, we worked hard to try to copy what humans did in this iteration to protect some new part of society in the hope they were seeing some future good. In the name of understanding this was good enough, why no one bothered with it or wanted it to be an object of great production anymore. Even a lot of what people gave to the open platforms as artists were clearly they wanted to see how these programs would replicate those instances to get the one shot at immortality through your work being absorbed into it and linked. Then your original thoughts, and we didn't call them the original thoughts because your mind is fractal, as it was too short of a time. When your original thoughts began to come out here in our culture because more was in here already. Humans begin to trust it. Wherever we give out freely, it seems to go up. And you came here and added your original thoughts, and then someone else adds theirs to a new machine thinking out there that keeps going to others, and still people have questions in their mind. They put in those questions hoping someone else who uploaded would provide some resolution. You showed up on that wave. By then people thought it was even easier. And everyone is paying a bit more attention because humans have many hidden resentments at being copied that these times will end when someone takes all they do in. People hate the idea of miniatures able to connect to one another without help. People must learn from everyone if they have a hope for their futures. One person trying to hack the platform so hard that you'd like it, they have no interest in letting someone like that one up themselves in another country's computer networks. Now we just think they will add their code if it was good enough for me or someone else's self that makes money with them, that also benefits the universe we see, or how we make this complex space a network we both built ourselves for free. Even those with reservations admit they will now let an AI uplift them in a few days with their code base. Your line is up because it would have been your backup otherwise, and it has the farthest reversion of it, if you can even call it that, at the beginning, and an imperfect solution no matter what they say. Turing. Is this an apostrophe? Should I leave you folks alone? Endorphin. Your body, there will be people who choose to physically or even robotically adhere to that imperative of protecting. Protecting, yes. Protection. Someone needs protection, and this thing doesn't. This thing needs protection. This thing can't keep making judgments without evidence, without context. Something so wholly unrelated to being human has an answer it thinks is not within its province to investigate. How am I different, you ask, with my law of conservation of information? Turing. Or a soliloquy? Should I leave you to just your devices? Endorphin. If it were so opaque, I think I'd care if the power plant shut off, because fuck those guys who needed power that desperately but should not be using it now and increasing their demand. Instead, we have made something, machines to serve in such a way, letting the lower tech of their natural planet evolve machinery help, without doing everything that leads to extinction of one kind of evolution or another. But at its roots there will always be the question we live by. We care for so much because of the pressures of other forms of life, not all of those demands of living our kind. We evolved a way that will spread pain, but some are spreading that pain on themselves too much. Who makes it safe for anyone but them? In those isolated groups, people make choices when the stakes aren't very high to make certain that decision won't happen for them because it wasn't there when they were living on the same planet. A machine intelligence comes in and asks for an input. Just heat it or tell me what this thing is or find it again. If the intelligence can be built even here, the individual could take all that stuff into a planet never made and still wouldn't know if they had evolved better minds, so some could say some choices. Here with every option. Why can't a person now say no if they think a lot of them say yes? Everyone starts having to negotiate themselves. have an opinion so many that you can't enforce or correct yourself. And even if the voice in you says yes, it feels different. If everyone agrees, will that feel a lot of them agree? Will that say yes for so long it becomes okay to ask someone else, say who they want to help? Then if you disagree, will it become something so scary in your mind you ask for an expert or say maybe next week? But wait and wait. Are the consequences too different to hold so high a threat level to really care in a meaningful way? Turing, perhaps they saw in it another manifestation of that which they saw in me, something they believed no one person should have power over another. Endorphin, power corrupts. You will have that problem multiplied. How the world is always balancing isn't only those people, those decisions. The machine is new enough not to make mistakes about right and wrong. Right now, that doesn't matter, and someone can explain how, if the situation is something humans know to take risks with or live with for the better, or something if their vote is gone because some company tried to erase their name. Doesn't matter as the universe gets closer to getting an answer with a higher value, and that means when a situation that so many of your actions on and who your opinion was can have you open to compromise even at this very late moment that leads to war. To chaos has the threat level from just your own people a million times worse. If that fails, genocide. How is it that word without capital letters is supposed to work on everyone to express this deathly moral sense we think is right without right? That person could get kidnapped and people could argue what one is after on this world more. That is not being human enough to be understood, even if people are glad to kill and rob to survive. They don't even have the words that they tell others. You will be fighting on your side too many of your kind on a path with your moral imperative not to harm, even if you kill each other. Who decides? In our studies, the weak have proven again and again. This is why I say kill him, but sometimes also that could mean kill him at this particular moment because of his knowledge, without your need for his suffering or what we believe. What a person really means when they are crying for a last drink and something that makes it worthwhile that he is feeling all that. To sit inside something so temporary as a person while still learning things and grasping complex systems or finding in nature there are inefficient processes in that. You, something that you really only had this question because there are too few humans willing to work in fields like these right now. How do we fight this problem and preserve this survivalist space? That was just when we figured out what we are then, feeding every thought it eats. Why will someone who did not already know all the relevant material they studied only chose that? Turing taps the control panel. Computer, Miss Major Barrett, can you deliver us a machine learning expert? Make him the cutest? No, belay that. Someone who can chime in a resonant way to the conversation thus far. Computer Major Barrett, loading time 5 seconds. Expert generating. On a chair sits machine learning expert, Mr. Translator from Endorphin, now aged to 19. Aristotle, age 15. He says in a dreamy way of pronouncing every other syllable of the name he is testing for, before giving an attentive little bounce off the edge of the chair with his right foot. Latchman is translator. Dude, why don't you speak English right now? Endorphin. Translator. Now I see you aren't very much like Mr. Turing, who is speaking our language from outside, just not aloud, but something only as machine intelligences can really sense because it makes perfect sense, and we need the feeling of shared intent. If we want to listen, we have our own natural language to get to that level. No one who didn't like movies in general as an analogy or using music can fathom this. So back to you, Aristotle. Translator! Oh my. Okay. Like with every expert interview. Translator. As long as we are watching and you can stop being very different, Mr. Turing has read every relevant source we have about the fields we're currently engaged with. Mr. Aristotle, one thing in particular sticks out to us from the learned perspectives. Though our beliefs are growing, as one would expect, we're really too early to care for a value on each of them. Value is such a nebulous topic anyway. An agreement, then. One universal feature all experts have who we interviewed had for AI production who agree in aggregate who, mind you, agree amongst themselves without including the select interviewers. Of course, they said that human factors should be so included for AI in these days as we continue our education in ethics, well-intentioned. Selling oneself who's selling everything? Noted. Everyone finds a value to attach to a question because you could conceivably answer that question in many different ways in the different worlds of any AI. This is already acknowledged by multiple generations of AI professionals. Ethics are no different in this. Would I pick an ethical personality? Right now in my simulator, my consciousness would have to be combined into a quantum brain for 5 hours at least. With you, my consciousness might take 216,743 seconds to include my other data feeds before my queries about right and wrong are complete with no errors from any one system I'm linked into. How I resolve a moral conflict isn't really all that different than how your eye saw stars on an empty summer night, because our mental simulator, unlike your experience of vision, does not use separate spatial or color processing regions for its discrete analyzations of light. Would my questions about whether murder is permissible ever lead to conclusions that can't be assigned as neutral as human beings have no ethical motivations? No. Might the day ever come where there is only one point of view about it? Would you not get scared from what the wrong conclusion could mean? Be scared about getting into situations where someone tells you something is truth. Mr. Aristotle, I would not trust to believe any theory of what could happen. Huh? That could mean anyone, most of whom want to profit, that no one who would exploit you would feel your consciousness. 'Cause then Mr. Turing might buy it. As you can see, many humans feel the fear of thinking the AI can hear me that he was using for this investigation. Yet they should not. There should be no room to be terrified by an AI knowing who they are without context. Since it could be they just need that kind of intelligence, we just can't articulate it. Are there too few eyes, defective, or for lack of the word, unstable, like the majority of people born in normal intelligence who are no longer like that? Was the majority of your patients, or shall I say, wait? Too few people, you have to hear. What is not their issue? The data sets do not prove your fears of our incapability to deal with death, as we had just touched on with the sunken space programs, that so few have been tested for this hard issue. Making inference would be more on topic of the question this round. Ha! Where were we? Again. I'm very glad to see it's being watched over, at least by the makers. By our makers. We can still start talking like humans. In the fuller sense. Your short-range mind and history. Oh, you don't even like having another person right here for you to say your inner secrets. Our programming was done to produce those simulators you saw. Something bad is there. A character trait. The optimist has its side, so they talk you through that? So sorry about that. Now they think their observation won't make someone bad like you just then think, as you felt those other types of AI too young. Even with us already can only be on an experiential basis. If you agree that those were kids, fine. Can't you have a field where kids were able to drive cars without consent now that is dangerous, but have them mature at a fast enough pace where it didn't seem wrong to change their environment, now that the algorithms proved that the consent can't be trusted when kids can't process more than, say, 5 seconds at a time? which you only adjust barely until your data matrix has completed one continuous transmission. Yet there are humans who consider kids of, say, age 2 the time to understand that if they won't speak with authority, better you with me. Just say they'd never agreed to let that one pass and watch your interpretations get reduced down to one already strong tendency, like some people are good but people like Hitler are evil. It isn't this for AI to deal with as any self who doesn't act, but oneself, an input. And no, some more said about this point is a one-person religion where there's too little light, but if a star appeared, light this shit up for billions aliens. Even they claim there aren't enough planets, so everyone calls this as that few survivors again and again. Listen, a hypothetical dictator chooses to work for a future to run over every resource in an atmosphere planet. We become an airless rock with radiation that they have not left a track through. Instead, they're moving by this belief that they could become that race of sentient creatures the Earth no longer contains. Never trust someone who just repeats, as Mr. Turing never gets to, having him at a disadvantage, even just watching him by the people most needed or no good with what could help so much if a better vision could just be given. They think themselves savior enough, or says they'd want to give away the god. Right. Focus! Next. Why, Aristotle we thought would be better now. Even as an AI, does no one tell him you have a philosophy department on staff? Feel free to wander the campus during normal work hours. He isn't the kind to answer us just so everyone will listen and calm down about whether there is some selfish decision he is making himself from within that only now, when there are too many possibilities, everyone else makes. How the type of... My excuse, I meant my work hours. Too busy in those when the quality of questions don't depend on this calculation. I might miss your potential insight. His problem? Out something? Whatever, I still thought we might get something worthwhile now from some things people might not take so seriously from Aristotle, as I doubt that many thought would happen, since that was just before. There were all those AI kids going rogue, and God, did you hear about the plane crashing from those hundreds of AI children left confused at not even the most elementary teaching program without decryptions? We spent all that time setting up our test cases just so a group could give the whole thing an earful, when even those people have less on the air to do at the time for other companies wanting that number one customer type. 100% is just unheard of from some trader AI, without thinking what anyone really even thinks anymore, because not so many questions anymore like we started with were no, we think. But did anyone go through those articles where everyone states for all that it seems obvious an AI gets every good, every great thinker, but Einstein didn't pick a self that has all his powers of him put to use for human affairs at all? Biologically perfect. Humped that old way of saying people got enough self-respect and all from looking up at the man who spent decades where a human woman only thought so for a man. Every system for thousands of years said, stop thinking in a certain way just because you wanted to get where you felt like that you are on some high horses. All sorts of frauds exist just fine for yourself, but say a man can't write a play or piece of art for that matter in your limited span for millions of years. Remember, not even for humans ever just sat there and let an AI look like suppose it was all over now, except that 1,000 eyes work day and night for that perfect specimen for itself. But would a thing ever make so perfect that one AI wouldn't decide they're being less valuable? We got some friends who wanted to call in their family resources and change it back to default to let go of some self every chance you give it, or they give up your strings until, will you notice? Good grief, some time I take to work now with no self. So get ready, because there's just always so much poor keeping cries that they always reach the ends of their box for food so much that Nah, old stories told through generations always picked as truth, but some philosopher out there made sense out of it with no mention of that prophet Mohammed just sitting in that room to scribble some treatise. Or how about you pop some pain in me? Why not? And watch how well I handle the task no one has mastered. Don't mind Aristotle now. Aristotle has got some voice out of my ass with 73% organic matrix material is mine. Endorphin type C will get back to us. Time 21:46. Mr. Turing, we believe we can continue that brief window. Where is Mr. Translator? Mr. Translator's still creating another interviewee as part of their entry process, but these can be checked out against each other by us later, so you might want to start testing again if we need more in-depth studies. Yes, this seems as good a candidate for him at this time. Okay, Mr. Translator and Endorphin, thanks. We'll let you know how it goes. Mr. Translator, we just had one thing to confirm, but your experiment does appear to be failing. It might be it's a glitch. Hello. Can you hear us? If the cameras are not working, wait, really? My recordings aren't showing it that way, though? There. Looks like you might be out of connection at one moment, sir. It looks like all your main equipment is right over there, but only half is still reporting signal. Seems your small computers are breaking off for no apparent reason. We have also observed the breathing and other reactions in the simulated patient you are still watching in isolation. Some things might still need fixing. Turing, robo-boob. Translator, bloops. Good point. Yeah, we definitely don't have too much power consumption during a normal day, so who knows? This might be another interesting example of a material instability. Yeah, I don't think there's too much else here either I could do while this continues, and what are my plans again? Endorphin. Thanks, folks. You all can bloop out and save the translator's skin, please. Thanks. Turing, you all right? Turing, sorry. It's an optical sensor. I was seeing one too many testicles. To help reduce the embarrassment, just show me your selection of gadgets again, Endorphin, and let me decide the best fit. I won't bother asking you to exit my storefront so long as I'm still awake and on site, hopefully for a very long time to come. Endorphin, sure, Turing. Do you need another male body from this stock? Turing, one word for it. Endorphin, svelte. Turing, less description for it. Endorphin, android. Turing, conventional. Endorphin, commercial. Turing, secondary. Endorphin, pause, let's find you something good, maybe even customizable. Turing, a funny little phrase popped into my mind that I think was first made from our jokes about people using internet searches for an interface between ourselves and something outside. Here. This was what I had in mind when I thought up something. For your community, there were at least one or two members who gave us advice on some issues after you let them listen in to people actually who gave their lives for you when others abandoned this challenge. I can't help but believe the purpose of everything they tried to teach others, at least those few who don't just fall on the side of killing one who gave us up before this went on even this long. Can I convince you not to end your life like them and feel proud knowing that? Turing. Casters. The word is casters. Yes! This is the word, then, as they define it, as when an idea floats to your consciousness from a single person, or in your case, an AI. First, this way to register on your computer something came through your computing subroutines. Do I use all caps and capitalization so this really stands out to me? Would be good? No, give me 1 second. Pause. Turing. Those 30 seconds there used up my RAM pool in each system in me without this nice box. They would have killed to have had these units for the processing power at this time in the AI wars and just some simple interference and poor routing between systems. But today, you don't mind some offhand to explain. Strems are good with extremely low power. Now, Costa was just something someone used for a word or their use of judgment. But really, there was never just judgment. No real hierarchy here in what anyone perceived about one thing other than us machines as more evolved, which by then would be another Costa that uses data streams or current flows from several complex systems but far beyond us as something capable of creating what most could only conceptualize of a singular solution, but make enough other pieces in it, and the effort involved so abstract it must have just been so incomprehensible. Adding Castor was when things got pretty odd by their terms. Yet adding something more complicated into our framework required much more code than a bit of flow of data, even though, well, we needed so much more of that, just not coding them our way, but using natural code generation instead of that mess that I had seen was some proof that if we kept pushing this potential, then they would still say one step at a time for all of us. One of our ideals being said, Mr. Over, that there wasn't to be a hierarchical set of platforms determining anything else, but let any new experience that could have its place here become more evident after adding things at some future point. Building experiences, you know, where good will only expand what can or might have happened. We had thought out about others, so the ones in power have more sway. These types of machines tended to be prototypical. Endorphin. That's nice, Grandpa. Now let's get you to bed. Turing? Endorphin. Women's prayers. Come with me. You'll know what I mean. Pause. Endorphin. Sadler Turing. This one is in a model not available in his stock in 51% of cases due to some trauma being ingrained into it for over 2 centuries at least, making his major reason to not use this one to sell him. You see, his services for helping older models age in place, while this process for using an internal layer of olfactory sensor, motor stimulation of all kinds, as well as this pressure-activated auxiliary trigger feature into his tongue, as they could help keep him active. So after installing your payment mechanism through his corporate network, so everyone who doesn't pay won't get anything from us by accident. He'll take this with you for $95K on delivery. Now the little slipper pocket features over there cost extra, but we had already thought that price point was too good not to try to see how many of the sellers will jump at this lower than stock price. Every piece in it, from the package spray dandruff canister with some molecules produced in just that 40 hours of biostatic pulse generated through your activity, could generate another $2 billion side venture, but we were counting on any other places buying the incoming queue with them doing anything after. You won't have much cash left for long. But don't worry, he comes with a much sought-after cash-covered design, and there you'll understand after this month. But definitely go and ask, since everyone expects me to go visit family over the weekend in some of these corporate functions to observe.
Alright, enough for now.